what's up? It's Cruz. Welcome to another episode of Hidden Hands. This is a New York edition. I got my family in New York with me. I'm usually in Atlanta. Appreciate the people at Acosta Park, my brother Manny, for letting us use the space. Today is very, very special. We got a young Philly legend in the building. Our first engineer, and rightfully so. I've been fortunate enough to see my youngin' grow in this business and really do his thing and establish himself as one of the GOATs in the engineering space. You know, not only tracking, but now he's in the mixing world. He's doing amazing things. He is the guy over the first #1 rap album of 2023 on the Billboard charts. Give it up for my brother Ben Thomas.
Thank you, man.
Trav, what's up, man? I got my guy Trav with me. What's up? What we doing, man?
I'm always here, man.
What we doing?
I've been today, man.
Ben, what's up, man? Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you for having me, man. This is great.
Yeah.
Just here to talk.
Yeah.
You know, like you said in the intro, like Cruz and I's relationship goes far back. I mean, we met in 2018 or 2019, and it was crazy because I knew who you were, but I hadn't met you. And you know, we were doing a production camp, and I was engineering the camp, and I knew you were like watching, and I was like, yo, I got to be on my A game. I got to be on my A game. I know it's a blessing how much our relationship's evolved over the years.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it a lot. I've learned a lot from you. You've helped me a lot. And, you know, I'm hoping
Likewise.
that I was able to help you. You know, for a lot of people out there that don't know, like I was actually, you know, in a transition phase, and I was working to try to get Ben in the chair, you know, to help me out in Meek World. And, God has his ways of doing things, and he ended up with Uzi, and the rest is history, bro. You've been a part of some legendary projects with him. You know, you did the collab album with Pluto. You did, what was the other project you did just before Pink Tape?
We did the Red and White.
You did Red and White.
And then we did the Pink Tape.
Yep.
And we did a million features.
I was about to say features.
A million features.
Unreleased.
Yeah.
And all type of, you helped me a lot with a lot of the stuff that Meek and Uzi were doing together, from Expensive Pain to things that we still are that haven't come out yet. So definitely, man, it's been, like I say, bro, it's been an honor to just be a part of this journey with you. And, coming from the lineage of the gurus and the duros of giving back and being able to kind of see this, this thing of ours.
Yeah, and then to continue to do it for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the most important part. You
Yeah.
know? Hove's rapped about that like a million times. He's constantly mentioning this. Like, it was on Pound Cake with Drake. He was like, "Ye made millions, just made." You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with the lineage of engineering. It's like, we have to continue to pass on the knowledge,
right?
Especially us as engineers of color. Like this isn't our space. There's a few of us in this space, and there's a couple that we can look up to, but it's like we have to continue to try to inspire to get more and more. It's still, even now, it's still heavily dominated by white men. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
I think that has to do with just like access. Like, think about if you want to make a beat, what do you have to do to make a beat? Get a copy of FL, get some sounds off Reddit, and make a beat. If you want to record a song, like, think about the barrier to record a song.
Right.
A microphone, an interface, a laptop, something, and so I think that's what holds a lot of us back.
Yeah.
That's why we have to do what we can to try to inspire and try to help.
No, I agree. It's important to give back and give that knowledge and I think all of us here are really kind of doing our part as far as at least giving that access to the information that we never had, that forced us into certain situations that maybe we weren't, I know for, in my instance, Full Sail was necessary at the time, and it did lead to kind of the way that things unfolded for me. I don't know, with the way that we've set things up, it would have been necessary for a young Cruz right now to have to choose Full Sail first.
Well, I mean, I think
You know
this
what
is
I'm
what
saying?
I say when people ask me that question. They'll be like, should I go to school or should I not?
You should not.
Yeah.
What I always say is, I don't particularly care how you learn the basics. That's up to you.
Yeah.
If you can teach yourself the basics, great.
Right.
If you need to go to school to learn the basics, great. You know, if you can do some sort of combination of teaching yourself and getting mentored and internships and stuff, especially at smaller studios, that's kind of how I learn the basics.
Yeah.
However you choose to learn the basics, it's up to you.
Right.
But if you come to the studio, you are still starting as an intern. I don't care if you went to Full Sail or not, if you went to, because you have not been in a session, you don't understand how things, because it's like, we have a theoretical way that we teach this, and then there's a real world way that it actually happens.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And until you've been in a session under pressure, you don't know. You don't know what you're made of.
Because to me, I think school teaches. To me, I look at it like a car, right? So to me, school teaches the parts of the car, the flow of the engine. You know what I mean? Where you should look if it breaks down. But to actually get to the level where people want to be, you kind of got to get seasoned and be that mechanic who, when somebody pulls up, they hear it and like, oh, your timing belt's off.
Right,
or
right.
you know what I'm saying? Or what's happening here? And it's a quick thing because you've had so much experience with cars before. You had so much experience in each little problem to where you can now tackle each little problem.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
We've all probably seen almost every possible error that could happen in Pro Tools at this point.
yeah. But see, I think because that's a question people ask all the time. Where should you go to school or should you not? I think you should go to school if you learn at school.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? 'Cause there are some people who live their life and they learn at school, right? We know,
Right. Yeah.
And then there are some people who do all kind of other shit, hanging, Googling, you know what I mean? And they still learn. So, but what I see sometimes is some guys will try to bypass school when they're not cut out for that style of learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's about finding your trajectory because school is good. Like, I went to school for it and I learned a lot. But I was already making music in the studio when I went to school. So then it was just applying.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So I don't know what it would be like to go to school from zero to hero. Like,
See, I didn't go to school for it. My degree from Temple is in entrepreneurship and innovation management. Right? I went to business school, and but I had been making music the whole time. I had a studio in my mom's basement in high school. I had a studio in my apartment in college, right? But for me, I was living a kind of a double life for so long because I wanted to chase this dream, but I also was and it's not like I was going the safer option because it was safer. I enjoyed the work that I did. I was working, interning and working in consulting and in finance, and I enjoyed that work. But I felt like the opportunity in the moment was to do this,
Yeah.
And then I felt like that stuff was always going to be there. So that's why I didn't study music in school,
Right.
But yeah, like you said, it's to go back to your car analogy, because that's actually perfect that you brought that up, because I make a similar kind of car analogy to people. It's like you have to learn, like what we do, right? At the level that we work at, it's like F1. Like you are driving, that car is moving so fast. There's so many moving parts happening, between recording, editing, managing the computer, but also managing the emotions and the egos and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
If you can't just jump into that, you got to drive a little bit. Then we need to get you into like the basic level F1 races, and then you need to work your way up, because any of us right now, if they put you in an F1 car, you wouldn't even know how to turn it on. You wouldn't even know where to start. But it's driving. But
you've been driving your whole life.
Yeah,
Right.
it's driving, but it's not drive. Like it's so different. It's the same thing for what we do.
Right.
Everything happens the way it was supposed to. Even going back to what Cruz was talking about, our relationship before. The Uzi opportunity happened when it was supposed to happen for me. Because if it had happened 6 months before, I would not have been able to handle it.
Yeah.
It happened exactly when it was supposed to happen, because I knew I had the technical skill, because I had been recording rappers for years, and one rapper is a rapper. Like it's, if you know how to do the auto-tune, if you know how to do the beat effect, like it's the same thing. Yeah. But what I learned from you was how to actually be an engineer, and how to be a professional, and how to sit in that chair and play your role and know what your job is and what it isn't, and know where to speak and when not. One of the best things you ever told me was like, yo, man, don't get involved in any of the conversations that they have if that's not your thing. So like if they start talking about basketball, that's my thing. Exactly. If you want to start talking about basketball, I will go back and forth with anybody in the studio about that. But
so many, it's not even just engineers, but engineers take a lot of the grunt, but from it, you know what I mean? But so many people would dive into conversations and sessions and stuff, and it'll just
Just
be like,
look crazy.
What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
Everybody in here is seasoned. Everybody in here has their own lane that they've been doing this in, so they know a little bit more about something specific. Because the reality to it is when you go to saying you're an F1 driver, we call it sharpshooters. You know what I'm saying? Because anybody can record a song, right? So you start out, you're pressing 3, you're recording, whatever. But then it gets more specific as it goes. You know what I mean? And then you go up each time. So you may get called on to do something the same way every time. And you're not doing it the same way, but you're asked upon the same results every time. You know what I mean? And it's like the circus, really. You know what I mean? Like they have to land those tricks every time.
That's why it's important.
4 shows a day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if on the 3rd show, the ladder gets wobbly, the elephant runs out, and he falls off the stick. Like, circus over.
Yeah.
The next show, we're going to say, man, that circus is bullshit.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't take the kids there. They're fucked up. They're freaked out. So it becomes that to where you have to be a sharpshooter in your lane. But to become a sharpshooter, you have to start at the basics, which is schooling or just make music. You know what I'm saying?
And learn
Just
and
make
read
be open to
and
learn,
invest in yourself and watch the videos and read the article. I mean, I think I've probably read almost every like inside track sound on sound article, and I was doing that for years. Right? Like, I think something, and this is something, you know, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me yesterday, like, oh, I have a cousin, he makes music. Like, how can he get to where you're at? And the uncomfortable truth that people don't want to hear, and that I'm very open to expressing, is you just have to be so uncomfortably good at it. Like, and people don't want to hear that because it's not sexy and it's not like, but you have to be so good at what you do to even cut through, right? And then hopefully you get a couple lucky breaks, but it all comes back to, did you put in the reps? Did you put in the work to get good enough? Because before I met Uzi, I had probably recorded between 1,000 and 2,000 songs by that point. So when I got into the chair, I was able to take the time and use the mental energy to learn all of the other things that were new. But the Pro Tools wasn't new because I had the reps already. And I think people don't understand how much time it takes to really get good at something, you know?
And outside of that, the reps, the learning, and all that stuff, would you say that when you started working with Uzi, that there was something that just clicked that can't be explained between you two?
I think because of circumstances, there was no choice but for it to click. You know, Uzi and I met in March. Our first session was March 28th, 2020. This is like peak pandemic. I mean, Cruz and I had just came back from the Bahamas like 2 or 3 weeks before that, right? This is like peak pre-vaccine, pre-being able to buy masks.
So he was down there on that Bahamas trip.
Bro, when the NBA shut down. The NBA shut down.
Yeah.
That's the trip I was supposed to be on when bro and them was down there at Sanctuary. And they wasn't there because we had that show in the Bahamas.
If you was there, we might have got that fucking record done.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I was not there. I didn't go. It was just a show. They was out there for a show with no studio sessions and nothing. So
that was the one. That was the
It was right after the pandemic. Everybody getting their families
That shit got
together,
weird.
all that shit.
So to answer the question about did it click, there was no choice because he didn't have any other options, and I didn't have any other options of things to do either. So we was gonna make it click. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't magic at first. I think I did the work to come in prepared. You know, I read the articles, any sort of content that I could find, because I was already a fan, so I was already familiar with his music. But any sort of article I could find or anything about that style, I read them. And so, you know, I found a inside track article that had a picture of his auto-tune settings. And so I had them. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna have those same settings. And then of course things got better as we've worked together longer, but I think from the beginning, I think we were just in a situation where it had to click, you know.
And I mean, you know, I think that what you were able to do and what a lot of people have to understand is, like, when you do get those opportunities, you know, as much as you're saying that it kind of had to work, you were prepared, you know what I mean? So, like, you came in at a certain level of preparedness and you were sharp, you know what I'm saying? And, like, it's not just something that necessarily fell in your lap per se. Like, it was like you were the man for that job at that time, and you
I think
took
I agree.
advantage of it.
I just think that similar to what I said about, you know, there being a lack of just general understanding of what being truly excellent at something means.
Yeah.
I also think there's a lack of understanding in what sacrifice means.
Yeah.
You know, and what that, like, what it really, really means. I mean, I sacrificed a lot to get here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm talking about, like, I went to 1 or 2 parties in college. I did like 6 internships, multiple studios, like class, finance internships, studio till 5 in the morning, then waking up at 9 and going to, like, I did that for a long time. And then even, you know, with the Uzi opportunity, I mean, the travel and the work and the, you know, we're doing 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. 7 days a week. I mean, holidays didn't matter. You know, it was worth it, but I don't think a lot of people understand what sacrifice looks like. I think it takes a special type of person to understand that, and I think that's what we have in common. We understand what it means.
Yeah.
It's not even to see it, because it's like a faith sacrifice, because you don't know.
Yeah.
If it's gonna pay
to
off.
see what you need to sacrifice, because a lot of times some people will make excuses and they won't realize that that small excuse seems like nothing, but that was the moment you were supposed to sacrifice.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it could be something simple, like just don't go hang out today. You see what I'm saying? Like, you have to chill. But some people say, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to go do this, and then I can still come back and get on my computer at night and do this and still learn. You know what I mean? But you can't. You have to sacrifice the things, because, like you said, to me, the sacrifice opens up room for, like you just said, you don't see it. You see what I'm saying? So when you don't see it, you have to dive into it. You have to. It's hard to explain. It's like most of my moments where I've elevated in life through engineering or through music, which everything has been through music and engineering, because I've only had like high school jobs, but then
I've never had jobs.
But I'm saying I've never had a job, so it's like outside of that, it's like, okay, but these times will come where I'll be like, I'm gonna go do that. You know what I mean? And I might be talking to somebody and they might say, oh, they'll understand if you have to do this with your family, and it's like, yeah, they made this time. You know what I mean? But what I'm not doing is I'm not allowing the times that I don't know, the things that I don't know, to be available. You know what I mean? To be available for those certain times. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of sacrifice. Did you want to be an engineer like the whole time? Like, how did you get into engineering?
Yeah. So I got into it very, very young. The long story, less long version is I was in 7th grade. There was a play. I didn't want to be in the play. They said you had to be in the play. I was like, I'm not going to be in the play. They said, all right, go up to the booth. And the teacher in the booth started to show me kind of what a mixer was and how microphones worked and that type of stuff. And then around that time as well, I've always been very into computers, like super, super into computers. And so the seeds were being planted. And then by the time I got to high school, I had a friend. He wanted to make a mixtape, and so we used the microphone from Rock Band and Garage Band, and we begged our math teacher to let us use his classroom during lunch, and we made like the worst mixtape ever. Like, I'm so thankful that I am just old enough that it was on a CDs, not on SoundCloud, so there's no copies of it. And then it was just steps from there. So then the next step was I just was recording friends, and then I was blessed to get an opportunity through my music teacher to go to Grammy Camp, which is the summer camp run by the Recording Academy. I came to the one in New York. It was at a studio in Brooklyn. It's just my first time, like, API console, and, you know, just in a studio. I'm like, it's my first time ever seeing Pro Tools. I was either still using GarageBand or using Logic, and I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Right. But like I said, I was still. Around that time, this is like 11th grade, I was also introduced through a different internship into the world of like finance and investment banking. And I was like, oh, I actually want to do that. And so I just spent the next 5 or 6 years balancing my interests in both. Got a job offer after college. Oh, let me back this up a little bit. Through some blind luck, honestly, was introduced to one of my close friends named Chill Moody. He's an artist and entrepreneur from Philly. He introduced me to somebody named Anthony Bell. And let me come and intern at his studio. And I think this is one of the things for how I ended up, you know, achieving success from a younger age, is that my studio internship happened when I was 18, where most people's studio internships happen 21, 22. So it just happened earlier. Started doing that. One day, Ant was like, hey, go to Jasmine Sullivan's house, teach her how to record herself. And I went, I set up the gear, I tried to show her, she wasn't picking it up, and I was just like, hey, if you want to record, just call me. I didn't think much of it. And then so that's how that relationship started. And then I graduated college in 2018. I accepted a job offer in tech consulting, deferred the start date for 8 months. I was like, all right, you got 8 months to figure this out. Because I had a couple songs come out with Jasmine and, some other little stuff here and there, but it wasn't anything substantial.
Yeah.
This is, I think this.
Stage can be very.
Yeah. And I think
financially.
this part is super important to talk about. But when I was in college, I was in this business program called MLT. It stands for Management Leadership for Tomorrow. It's like the premier Black and Latino business acceleration program. So they take like the top 200 to 300 Black and Latino business students from all across the country. Like there was kids from Harvard and wherever, right? You get to go to these conferences. You get like separate interviews for entry-level jobs at all the big companies and stuff. This is how they fill, their, not quotas, but this is how they find the best Black and Latino business talents and stuff, right? So in this program, I got the job offers from the program. I got the offer. I deferred it. And then I have this job offer that's like $80,000 a year and like a $13,000 bonus and stuff. And I said, I pushed it off. I got like a $600 or $700 a month apartment in Philly. I found this studio space that was like a closet essentially, but it was a soundproof closet. It was like $200 a month. And I'm like just making enough money to cover both of these, right? And I'm going on Instagram and I'm seeing all of these other people that I met in this program. And they have like the fancy jobs, the Facebook, Google, Apple. They're spending money, living this. And it was just like, I was like, did I just make the worst decision of my life? So I pretty much unfollowed everybody to clear my head, to get that mental clarity to follow my dreams. So I graduated in June. The job offer was the start date was February of 2019. And in January, I still hadn't made a decision by January. And shout out my mom. She's, one of the best humans ever. She supported me my whole career. She let me turn her basement into a studio. She said, you're not taking that job. You're not doing it. I was like, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say the other thing. You're supposed to say to go. She's like, no, you're not doing it. Like, follow your dreams. The jobs will always be there. I called them. I said no. I mailed them the check back. The rest was history.
That's hard. That's hard.
And mom always supportive like that?
100% from the beginning. She was always supportive. She was never not supportive. She provided me the opportunity to go to Grammy camp. She let me turn the basement into a studio. She was always supportive, even to this day. It's a little different now. I don't really think she fully understands what's going on, but there was two moments for me that I've always meant the most with this, right? The first time I went out of town with Uzi, we went to Atlanta and Miami for about a month. I got to come back home for like 2 days and then I had to go to New York. She picked me up from the airport. I just handed her $500 in cash, because the first time I had really made money. And then now, when I ordered my first plaques, there's plaques at my mom's house and there's my Grammy certificates there. And, it's just like, so just to remind her of what it was worth. But she made a lot of sacrifices for me. Single mom, always sent me to the best schools. It's always been incredibly supportive.
That's what's up.
No,
that's good to hear. Cause, we just were talking about this recently where you have the opposite with certain families where they like kind of play the safe zone, just to kind of protect their kids, you know what I'm saying? And maybe it's like them projecting their fears on you or whatever it is, but to have somebody that, and I had similar, where it was different for me because it was more like, we got you, we support you, but are you 100% sure? Because like, are you really trying to go that route instead of going this route? But I never got like the disown type energy. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like
support the whole time.
Yeah. So I definitely relate to that. One thing, and this is a little random, but I wanted to get into because one thing I admire about you is like you're very good at balancing because it's a tough gig, right? You might hit a lick and get like a good gig, and then like you might have a quiet time and it get a little rough. You've always been really good with finances. We've had like a really we've had like conversations where you've given me kind of like your people that you lean on, like, you know, Jake and Bill and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I got a little finance team from Ben. And because early on, one of the mistakes that I made starting off as an engineer and being self-contracted is you get that money. And I came from the corporate world, so I was used to the taxes, everything being handled off the rip. So when I'm getting these checks from the office and Candace is like, yo, come to the office to come get the money from these sessions, from these artists, whatever, I'm like, cool. And I'm cashing them joints, and then like you get the bill from you know, Uncle Sam, and it's like, boy.
And they like, yo, we need ours.
I appreciate that. I'm sure. So first off, I mean, I was blessed, like I said.
I was going to say
I was in that world.
I was about to say, for one,
you kind of were already trying to go there.
Being into investment, would you say investment?
Yeah, so I was so I knew about money from the beginning because I was the black kid at the fancy private school, so I grew up around money. Even we didn't have it like that, I grew up around that world.
Yeah.
But you know, in college or even starting in high school, I was learning about finance and, you know, investment banking. Then I learned about investing and that type of stuff. I mean, yeah, so just to touch on a couple points, I mean, the first thing is for us as freelancers, right? Your savings is your leverage.
Yeah.
Like that's how you come up in the world is do you have something that you can fall back on? That is how you have leverage, because I don't remember who said this, but I heard somebody say, like, if you are not willing to walk away, then you're not really negotiating. Right? You're not really negotiating if you're not willing to walk away. What gives you the ability?
Come on, man, say it again, because I see people negotiate all the time with fictional things. I'm like, we can see through that.
If you're not willing to walk away, you're not negotiating.
Yeah.
What gives you the leverage to walk away? You have that savings behind you, right? So the first thing is you always pay yourself first, right? You always pay yourself first. You have to decide you have to decide like what I'm going to pay myself. And then I like to make it a percentage, right? So regardless, so if you take $100, if I make $100 today, what am I doing with this $100? Okay. 15% of it is going into my retirement account, right? Like 20% of it is going here. 10% of it is going into my guilt-free spending, because guilt-free spending is very important, right? You decide that, so then when the money gets bigger, you already have the system in place, right? So when it's $100,000 coming in, it's the same percentages are going into different places, right?
Yep.
I really recommend some books for people. There's a book called The Psychology of Money. That's a very, very good book. There's another book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I like that one a lot as well. Those are two that I like that I've read that have taught me a lot of things. But ultimately, it comes down to this, right? Good money strategies are boring. They are not sexy, right? Like, put your money in an index fund, an S&P 500 matched index fund, right? You're gonna get anywhere from like 6 to 11% returns over 40 years.
Yeah.
It's low risk, it's low fee, and the money is growing.
Yeah.
You know, you can play around, 2 to 5% of your portfolio with some crypto or some of this, but put your money in something steady.
Yeah.
Because that's how you build your leverage.
Right.
In terms of the taxes, in my opinion, there's two different kind of strategies to go about the taxes, right? Depends on how regular your income is. Strategy number one, you take a certain percentage of the money that you bring in, you put it aside. That's kind of what a lot of people do. You take a certain amount, you put it aside. The strategy that I personally do with my taxes is I invest most of the money that I make consistently, right? And then with my accountant, we forecast out about how much money do we think that we're going to make this year. And because I have had a steady gig, we know it's coming in consistently. So instead of putting money aside, I just budget out the whole year so that in April, the checks that I make in March and April just go directly to the taxes. So I don't keep any of that money those 2 months. I put that directly to the taxes, but I budget it out. So I have money for those months. So to me, that's a little bit easier than putting aside a little bit every month from each one. But there's two different ways, however you go about it. But You gotta give the man the money. Now,
Yeah, 'cause he gonna get it.
Get
He
a
gonna get
good
everything.
accountant
Yeah.
who knows how to get a good accountant and learn, either if you need a financial advisor or if you can learn about it on your own, how can I minimize the amount of taxes that I pay?
Yeah.
Here's a big one for people like us, right? A big one. If you do not have a SEP is a self-employed pension. Okay? If you do not have a your own retirement account, you're missing on huge tax savings, right? The money, a good amount of the money that I would pay in taxes, I put into my retirement account. Now, I'm not going to be able to take that money out until my mid-60s without huge penalties and then paying taxes on it. But that's offsetting my income. So it's lowering the, like, up to a certain amount. It depends on how much money you make, up to a certain amount. So let's just make the numbers super simple, right?
Yeah.
If I make $100,000, right, as income, I'm going to get taxed on all $100,000 of that, right, if I don't have any expenses, right? Let's say the max for my retirement account is $30,000. If I put $30,000 into the retirement account, now my income is only $70,000. So now my tax bill is going to be lower. So I'm paying myself and I'm lowering my taxes, so that when the rainy day comes, when we're all going to get old eventually, right?
Yeah.
God willing. I've been putting away money consistently, letting that compound interest, we're investing it very conservatively, letting that compound interest take over. Now, you know, if you give it 40 years, and the thing is, like, it's very difficult for people to see 40 years. Like, as humans, we're not good at seeing that far ahead, but it's going to happen, right? If I give that money 40 years, it's going to be worth millions. I
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know? So that's what it, and the other thing about the finances, the last point about it is, you know, for people like us, like, we're in the behind the scenes world. We are not the artists. You have to very quickly learn that. That is not you. Do not try to spend with them. Do not try to keep up with them. You will lose. You will lose.
Every
I've seen it
time.
happen.
Watch people crash
Every
out.
time.
I've seen it happen every time.
And then the funny part about it is the artist isn't even spending their money.
No.
And you're over here spending
Spending
your
your money that you worked really hard
and
for.
you're like, what the fuck? Yeah.
The blessing
Not even
for
worth
me
it.
is that the things that rappers are into, I'm just not into.
Yeah.
So there's no temptation whatsoever. Like, there's no amount of insert whatever those things are that you get. Like, I'm not into it, so it's not tempting in any way.
Yeah.
I'm not into fashion. I'm not into drugs. I'm not into like it. So, but pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. Get a good accountant. Save your money. That's how you build your leverage.
Yeah.
And then learn what enough is. A lot of people don't know what their enough is. And then you end up on the treadmill for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because lifestyle creep is very real. Lifestyle creep being like, you make $100 a year, you live $100 lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now you make $1,000 a year. Now you might be living like $1,500 lifestyle. Then now you're making $10,000. Now you're living an $11,000 lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then you're like, where did all my money go? Where did all my money go? Well, you upgraded your car 3 times, right? You got a new phone every time. You used to eat at McDonald's, and now you can only eat at Ruth's Chris. You
just hit the nail on the head.
see, I'll talk about finances all
Yeah,
the
I'm
time.
with you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm with you because this is my thing, bro. Finances, because once I learned it and really dove in and learned it, I was like, holy fuck. First of all, I had to understand that I had a bad relationship with money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that they have a bad relationship with money, because a lot of times people have this love for money, and they think that they have a love for money, when in reality they have a love for what money gets them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so right now, with that mindset, money's in between you and the things that you want.
Yeah.
That's not a good place for money to be, for your relationship with money. That's why when you said the psychology of money, it's so deep, because you'll be, like you said, interning, doing all this other stuff, you know what I mean? And then you'll get that big check. But that's the first big check. But then what happens? You go blow it. You know what I mean?
And you should.
Now, but hold on, but now you're working backwards.
Yeah.
After you go blow that, you're working, and you'll make mistakes and you'll come back. But what I mean is, once it's compounded, because the way you get rich is it being compounded the other way. You know what I'm saying? So if your investments aren't compounded, you're going up. But if your spending is compounded, if your wants are compounded, you're never gonna dig out of that hole. You know what I mean? So I had to learn that. Then you get to, man, like you said, you're an entrepreneur. You make this money, and the government doesn't know about certain dollars that you made more cash, all this stuff. So you have to figure out how you're gonna handle those things. But a lot of times a thing that I learned that helps is 70% is what you make. So if regardless of what comes in, every dollar, you only make 70% of that. You figure out the rest can go to somewhere else. This time it may go to savings. This time because you don't need that much in your savings. You only need 3 months worth of expenses in your savings. In my mentality, that's because you're an entrepreneur, so you gotta invest back in your business. You gotta invest in yourself. Like you said, you have to buy all kind of IRAs. You have to buy all kind of retirement accounts and all this other stuff. So if your big thing is in an accident's always gonna happen. Life is always gonna go up and down, right? So you could be saving, and now you saved up $50,000, right? You saving that $50K, you're just waiting for something to happen so that you can have the excuse to start spending that. Oh, well, my cousins over here, they down and out. They don't have a house. I'm going to help them out. Oh, these people over here, I'm going to help them out. Well, my wife lost her job. I'm going to help. You know what I mean? And now you're just spending your savings, which you've stacked up to spend. I mean, you've saved up to all this time. And you're getting rid of it fast. So you take 3, but if you had 3 months worth of expenses saved up, right? The 3 months, you could do 6 months if you feel like you need 6 months, but with any gap from 3 to 6 months, the average unemployment only lasts on average 6 months. So typically within 6 months you find a gig, right? So you have the 3 to 6 months saved up and you've been investing your other money. That right there is where your money's gonna grow at. You know what I mean? That right there, whether in there's 3 ways to invest, right? There's 3 things. You got real estate, stocks, and small business, right? But the ranking of those are different. You see what I'm saying? Because there's some people, so you have to learn each little piece of it because some people may get their money from music and they go buy stocks.
That's me.
You see what I'm saying? But you have the patience to buy stocks. You're not going to go back and need to get that because that's where you lose at in investing in stocks is when you have to sell your stocks on some emergency shit, right? So you wanna have some in your small business already. You see what I'm saying? Like you being in the seat that you are as an engineer is already small business. So you have some money to funnel out. But I suggest I suggest make the money, learn to make the money, learn to save the money, then learn to grow the money. You know what I mean? And in all aspects. So if you want to just buy stocks all day and you work at, or you just, you know what I mean, make a couple dollars here and there, eventually you're gonna go pull the money from those stocks when something
if you don't
happens.
have that savings built up.
Even if you do have the savings built up, because you sometimes you're just investing in investing. You know what I mean? You're not strategically investing. You're not investing from something that's generating money. So if you put a small business in between your stocks, now you're investing something that's making money. It's generating. You know what I mean? But some people don't have real generators to where you'll be digging back into a stock soon.
Yeah, I mean, people, you have to just.
You know
I
what I
only
mean?
invest in things that I know, right? So I don't know much about real estate, so that's not really my thing, right? And I'm okay. This is where this goes back to what I said about you have to know what your enough is, right? Because I'm okay missing out on certain things. You know, I know tons of people that was making tons of money in the crypto and the NFTs. I don't know about that. You know what? I'm okay that I missed out because I also know 10 times as many people that lost their money.
A lot of money.
Right? So like I'm okay missing out on things that I don't know. But ultimately it's about building leverage and understanding, like you said, what your relationship with money is. Some people, you know what? If you sleep better at night knowing you have 9 months in the bank, then have 9 months in the bank. Like, if that's what
your work ethic is 9 months worth of emergency.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe you might need that. No, seriously, like it's a real thing.
There's
you know
no
what I mean?
one set thing. The only things
There's
I can
no
say,
one set thing. It's so personal.
the only things I can say is save, invest. Another one, big one for us, right? For engineers and producers, stay out of debt. Stay out of debt. Stay out of debt as much as you can, right? Like, I promise you, I'm gonna look right in the camera. I promise you, nobody is gonna come to your studio because you bought a console.
Right.
Like,
right.
nobody is gonna come work with you because you bought a Sony mic.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna come work with you because you bought insert this.
Yeah.
Right? People are gonna come work with you because you're dope.
Yeah.
And yeah, do we need to get certain things to invest in ourselves? Sure.
Over time.
But we don't need a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that go into debt to get those things.
Yeah.
the debt will drag you down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And debt is, because debt don't have to be, because some people take debt and they think like, well, I'm not going to get a loan, or I'm not, you know what I'm saying, pawning my title or stuff like that. But debt can be getting the upgraded cell phone. You know what I'm
The
saying?
monthly
Like,
payments on the cell phone, them
and
credit cards,
yes,
them leases
the
on them
monthly payments on the cell
cars.
phone is a big deal to me because people bypass it and it kills us all the time because you're going in, they come out with the iPhone 13. Now your payment last month you were paying $90 a month. You've been paying $90 a month. They say, hey, you can get the new phone, but you're gonna have to pay extra $35 a month. You're not paying $35 a month. You're paying the $2,000 that the phone costs. You see what I'm saying? It's like you have to look at the money as what it is. You have to work on your relationship with money, and that's a very like you said with the leverage thing.
Yeah,
It's so important. It's so important because being able to walk away and have a time to yourself is gonna be. It's a part of the game. It's the way it works. It's like, hey, you're about to level up. You need to go sit down. You know what I'm saying?
Even here's the other thing about being able the leverage and walking away, right? Let's say you just end a gig and you didn't handle the money correctly and you only have 2 months saved up, right? What if Beyonce was going to call in month 3, but you had to take some other job because you didn't save your money? And so now you're not available. And so now they know that you're not available, so they don't call you. That's the important part. It's not only the leverage to walk away, but the savings gives you the ability to wait for the right gig. And then last thing about the money, or we can keep going here, but like,
no, this is a good conversation.
The same thing that they said in that.
Engineers don't talk like
that. They don't get this game, bro. They don't get this game.
When I got into the game, I told an older engineer, I said, I don't know how engineers make money. And you know what he did? He laughed and walked off.
No, I would
instead of sitting here saying, "What? What do you mean you don't know how?" You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm an open book.
Tell me what you're trying to figure out.
I tell engineers all the time. I tell younger engineers all the time. I say, "What do you need? You want to see my invoices? Take them. You want to know how much did I charge? I don't care. I'll tell you because." For 2 reasons. 1, you need to learn. And 2, it's actually in my best interest for you to know how much I charge. So then you know what the going rate for this is. Or you're going to undercut me and the next person undercut you. And you're going to drag all of our rates down.
Now you're talking my language.
I will tell everybody.
It's all hidden. And what happened is the tide has gotten so fucking low that the boat is scraping the bottom.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like everybody's boat is just.
But the thing about the money is this, right?
Tide.
In the book, I'll Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. It's a great book about money. One of the things he talks about is he calls it money dials. And I firmly believe in this. And what he's saying is, this will make sense for us engineers, right? Imagine all your wants, all your wants and needs like faders on a console, okay? And there's a limiter on that master fader, so we all know you can only push but so much signal before it's going to distort, right? So you need to figure out what is your money balance. What are you willing to spend on? Push those faders up. And the things that don't matter to you, pull them faders all the way down. For me, I'm not the fashion person. I still buy my clothes from like Uniqlo and like, you know, maybe not H&M, but like Uniqlo, you're not going to see me out here wearing Balenciaga.
But this is the thing. Everybody spends their money on something.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Regardless of what your interests are.
Right.
Because you got guys who, they'll be like, oh, the black guys are spending all their money on Jordans and fucking all this high fashion shit. But then you'll go to the guy's house and he'll have 2 TRXs with a lift kit with a $12,000 lift kit on his fucking truck with $3,000 tires. Each tire is $3,000. You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, that's what you spend your money on. You still work at UPS with the guy who has the Balenciagas. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's different. And in that, sometimes, you know, it's a lineage of the world. So, you know what I mean? Things like life insurance, like that'll kick in later. And that guy who bought the TRX, he might be okay because his family has some land and all that shit. So we understand that the demographic is, I mean, the history of the United States plays a part into it.
Yeah, but it's all about figure out what are your things that you're willing to spend on, and what things don't matter to you, and you cut those, and that's how you can still feel like for me.
But let's be honest with these people.
Yeah,
they need a financial therapist. Some people need therapy.
Got to read that Psychology of Money book.
You need therapy because some people have financial trauma.
For sure.
Like, especially in our community. Communities of color have so much financial trauma.
100%.
I'm talking about when it's November. These motherfuckers are fucked up, sitting there like, damn, what am I going to buy these kids for Christmas? How am I going to get them this? I'm gonna get this. You can't afford it. You know what I'm saying? You can't. So come up with a happy Christmas without you buying the Balenciagas and this that, because what you doing is putting your whole family in debt for over Christmas time. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and it's financial trauma that's making you do it. It's so much financial trauma, and creatives come with so much financial trauma on us because we dream. Because we're dreaming, we're going through life, we're going through these struggles. Oh, I've been watching. I've practiced this skill so that I could blow up and buy my mama a house and do this and that. When in reality, that's financial trauma.
It is.
So before someone could sometimes stop and save $1, they need to understand that they have financial trauma and that it's gonna be something else tomorrow.
You have to work through it.
All I need is these pair of shoes
Right.
the next week. Yeah, but them fire. All I need is them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
But
never
these
stops.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna stop after this.
Yeah, nah, it never
And it's
stops.
Like, that's
Never
financial
stops.
trauma.
That helps
Right.
me a lot when it comes to money, right? And this is big. I'm big into like the minimalism community and stuff, but something that talk about a lot is you got to distance yourself from the purchases. That's big for me, right? Like if I'm gonna buy something that's over a certain amount, I got to give it a couple days to come back around and see. Okay, do I actually need that?
Keep from the impulse.
Yeah,
Impulse
I
buying.
distance myself from certain purchases, but then there's certain purchases for me. For instance, books. I don't care how much the book is. If I think the book is even remotely interesting, I buy it. Because how much is a book? $20, $30? If you get 2 paragraphs out of that are worth it, they'll pay you infinitely off that, right? So like that's something that's books for me. Food is another one for me. I got to fuel my body. I have to take care of it. So where I will turn down the fashion dial or something else for me, like I don't care about flying that much. I don't need to fly first class. Just give me a seat. As long as it's not a middle seat, I don't care. So I'll turn those ones down, but I'll turn my food up or certain convenience factors up. You know what I'm saying? Like I love to take the train, but like I'm also going to take that Uber. You know, there have been times I've taken an Uber from Philly to New York before, right? But it works in the budget because I'm cutting in other areas that don't matter to me because I'm not trying to keep up with other people. That's, you know, I'm not trying to keep up with them. I'm doing me, you know, even in the engineer world, right? I have no gear, none.
Yeah.
I have like a brand new, super souped out laptop, an Apollo, monitors that aren't crazy nice. The one piece of, I guess, gear or whatever is like I have a pair of Audazes, so I have like very nice headphones since I travel. It makes mixing and recording easier. That's about it. And a bunch of hard drives.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's about it. You're not gonna find no preamps. You're not gonna find no microphones. You're not gonna find no compressors.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find no consoles. Nothing. And for a while, I was like, "Damn, am I not a real engineer? Because I don't have all the gear."
You just don't have no fucking closet.
Am I not a real?
Years later, they have all this old dusty ass shit.
Am I not a real engineer?
Dog, I'm telling you.
Listen, man.
People
go to
think
any
they
studio.
need that to keep up. I had a
Yeah.
conversation with a younger engineer. Bought this first check. I said, "What are you doing? Save your money.
Yeah.
Build your leverage. You don't need no one is booking you because you have a vintage Neve."
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I'm sorry, you're not. If you're 20 something, you're not old enough.
And let's be honest, because you just hit on something that's very important. The culture that those engineers have passed down, that game does not exist anymore. I cannot go buy a bunch of gear and then say, "Hey, work with the artist," and then say, "Hey, this ain't my gear. I'm renting this."
Right.
And then you guys are gonna pay for that because that's what they were doing back in the day. When
Yeah.
guys were getting all that
that
gear,
was
they
the
were
game
buying
I-
that shit. They were expensing that shit.
Absolutely.
There was a
from
Yeah, they had a
separate budget
company.
line for the studio for the mix. You got paid for the mix and you got paid for the studio. And if I use my
and
gear,
you
I'll
got
rent
paid
you
for the
that.
rentals.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yes.
you could create a fake rental company
Yep.
that was really
Yep.
your gear you purchased,
Right.
and you could build
Rent it.
your studio up, and then they would take all that rental gear, and then they would find some facility and put it in there, and then now we have a studio with the SSL in here and all this other shit. But if you go out and you try to jump off the cliff and do that shit in a time where all I need is a laptop to come kick your ass,
Nah, bro.
it's over with for you.
It's over with.
You
that
tripping,
model
you know
is
what I mean?
dead.
You're running
That
yourself
model
into
is
the
dead.
ground. You're gonna just spend thousands and thousands of dollars because the gear prices are going up because
Yeah.
it's becoming rarer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And not to
and
mention-
there's nothing wrong with buying gear.
No.
But we're just saying
In
be smart
moderation.
about it.
Yeah,
Be
be
smart.
smart.
If you're gonna buy gear, do not buy anything that is dependent on your computer because it's gonna be obsolete. Like I spent $5,000 on on December 31st, 2020 on a 2015, on a 2019 MacBook Pro, the last Intel version.
Yeah.
A year later, it was worth damn near nothing because they came out with the M1s, and now I just had to spend another $6,000 on that. Like, don't buy anything that's computer based, right? If you're gonna buy some gear, I get it if you're into that, but you better save your money and build your leverage. The gear is not gonna do that, and get better.
Yeah, nah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because this is definitely a game that producers and engineers really need, bro. Is because the shit ain't promised. The industry moves at rapid speeds. We living in dog years and this shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's all very, very important. But I want to switch it from earn your leisure back to the vibe. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to get into you going from kind of how you started in the story with Jasmine to now. And you can touch on kind of some of the in between, but you having the moment that you're having now of the first #1 rap album, congratulations again on that. With the Pink album, with the Pink tape. It was a big, big moment, and we called it a little early, but it got a little shaky when the Thug Project came out of nowhere. I was like, that one might get you. But you ended up, and it's a I want you to kind of touch on that process of how your involvement in the album and the things that you were able to do, because it was, beyond tracking. Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, and so I want to get into. Off. I mean, like we worked on Pink Tape for 3.5 years. I mean, we made 1,200 songs, like 1,200 finished songs. Yeah. And probably, I don't know the exact number on this started. Yeah. But it started somewhere, I'd say somewhere between 800 and 900, like started, and 1,200 finished songs. Every possible genre. There's rap songs, rock songs, techno songs. We went through all of it. In terms of my role, it just gradually increased. It was originally, I was just tracking, and then I started bringing in beats. And that's how, just a testament to relationships in this. Like, when I first was able to play beats, some of the first beats I played were from Benny X, because him and I, met years and years before that in Philly, and we both had no money and we're on the come up. And when I had the opportunity to play beats, I played some of his. And this is, before all of his current success. This was before all of that. And then Uzi liked it, and then we just had the song for 2.5 years after that, right? Yeah. So it originally was the tracking. I think the next step was that. The step after that would have probably been just kind of understanding the holes in the operation and how I could fill them, and being a team player and doing the things that needed to be done to fill the holes in the operation, And so if that meant, like, towards the end of the album, okay, cool, what are we doing? Like, do we need to get in contact with producers? Okay, cool. Let me chase them down. I know them. I was in the room. Okay, this person did that. Okay, let's connect Uzi's management with their management. Okay, let's do that. Album lyrics need to get done. Okay, cool. We can't send the music out. All right, me and the interns are gonna sit here for 2 days and we're gonna write out these lyrics. Like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, cool. We need to do this and that. Whatever role I can play, I'm willing to do it, because I want to see the project to fruition, and I also want to learn about the business, and that's the best way to learn is by doing. And then shout out Cannon and Leslie for being amazing mentors and trusting me to do the mixing for most of the songs on the album. I did like 17 of them, and Leslie did 5 or 6 of them. And shout out them for trusting me in doing that. And I was having this conversation right before about this specifically, because I didn't mix any of the songs on the Red and White project. Yeah. Right? I went to Atlanta and gave the files to Leslie and sat there and watched them do it and stuff. And I was like, man, at first I was like, wow, I feel like, could I have done this? But it was the best thing that ever happened that he did it, because I learned and we built that relationship.
I was about to say, you sat and watched them as well.
Exactly. And so then when it came around, I was able to kind of start doing the mixes and then get the pointers from both of them, and we would sit in the studio and they would listen to my mixes and tell me, okay, you need to do this. And that's a great testament to them for being real OGs and being very humble about it and pushing me to get better and better. Yeah. And like we said earlier, the opportunity to do the Uzi thing happen when it was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity to mix the Pink tape happen when it was supposed to happen, because I wasn't good enough and I wasn't ready before.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept practicing. I kept working with other people outside of it. And so then that was step number 3. And then the last step was the opportunity to do some producing in the more traditional sense of production. So specifically the song CS, right? The Chop Suey cover.
That's my shit.
Uzi came to the studio and was like, yo, download that beat off YouTube. I want to do it. I said, all right, cool. Download the beat off YouTube. We wanted to do it. Because of being, having that business background and showing that I could be reliable and trustworthy, I get involved and get included in a lot of, the conversations about song clearances and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So on the email, we sent it over to System of Down's management, and they were pretty much like, we'll clear it, but you can't use our instrumental. You got to get it replayed, and then we'll clear it, right? And I saw that as an opportunity.
Yeah.
I said, hold on. What does producing really mean?
Yeah.
Producing is not just making beats. What does producing really mean? I said, oh, I got this. I called all the homies. I said, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to put the homies on. I called my homie Mitch from Philly. He's an amazing bass player. I called my homie Brandon. He's an amazing drummer. I called Milk Boy on the studio in Philly, and I called my man Justin, who's an amazing engineer. I said, yo, we need to cut these drums. They went above and beyond. They pulled out the tape machine to get the original sounds and everything. Called the homie Matt. I said, Matt, he kind of gives a little punk rock aesthetic. Let me ask him. He said, oh, I used to play that song, with my cover band when I was in high school. Sent me all the guitar parts later that night. I went back and listened to the original song. I was actually able to find the original stems online. I realized that the stem that had the background vocals also had the strings and the piano. And that's why it wasn't in the instrumental that we recorded to. I said, well, this is making the song. This is what sets this song apart, is that it's this heavy rock song, but has these strings and the piano. I called the homie Man. Said, yo, piano, keys, I need you, right? So now I am the producer of this cover because I did it in their traditional sense, and we were able to put everybody on. Yeah. And we were able to get them paid, and we were able to get them points, right? And so now it's like when that opportunity comes, it's like, well, this is what production looks like. And then because of that song, and because of, hard rock is not a heavily streamed genre. It's more sales, it's more shows. Because we had that song and 2 other songs, I was able, and blessed enough when the album came out, not only did it debut on #1, but I was, for a week, I was the #1 hard rock producer in the world, which is crazy. Yeah, I did not see that one coming, and but it came from just seizing the opportunity. Yeah. Instead of just leaving it. And then what I'm most proud of, like I said, the homies got paid, and they're, we cut them in and everything, and that's what really matters. Yeah. It's just about plugging the holes in the operation. That's what I'm here for with getting the album done. What holes need to be plugged, and how can I do it? So we need this. Okay, cool. Boom. Like something, a tip for our engineers that are listening, right? If you're with an artist and they say, yo, I need to get this clip off YouTube. I want to put it into the song, right? In Pro Tools, put the link in the comment of the track that you put the YouTube clip in. So when the label calls and says, what is this? You have the link ready to go to send right over to them. There's no digging around. Oh, I don't remember. Was it this clip? Was it this car sound? Or was it that? Nope. Link is right there. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, man. You definitely did your thing. The project came out amazing. It was a moment, shout out to Brinkley, to Cannon, to everybody involved, the whole team, to capture all that emotion and that energy, and you put your touches on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really
he made me
thing.
Better through that project.
Yeah,
he pushed me hard.
Yeah,
and one of the things for me is like, I feel like I am of the last of the dying breed of like being a traditionally trained engineer. Like I came up, even when I didn't go to school, I came up in the studio culture, interning at the studio, learning, okay, this is how you use a patch bay. This is how, and sometimes when you come up that way, your brain is telling you like, this is the way this is supposed to happen. And something that I admire from people who didn't come up that way is they never learned this is how that's supposed to happen. So they're just doing. And so sometimes it can be hard for me to just do. And that's what I really appreciate Uzi for, was pushing me out the box. Uzi was like, I want to record with my voice pitched down. And I was like, that's not how this works. You can't do that. He said, I don't care. I said, all right, we got to figure it out. It's like, all right, Google. Oh, Waves has a plugin that will allow me to pitch it down in real time. It's like, I don't know if that's how that's supposed to go. And we did it. And then on Fire Alarm, you can hear that it's format shifted down 3. And that happened while we were recording, you know? And just the pushing in those settings, or I want it to be distorted, or I want it to do this and that, and trying to just get out of my own way. Because, you know, something that, you know, we've all talked about is like, a lot of this job is ego management. And when people hear me say that term, ego management, they think I'm talking about like managing the artist's egos. I'm like, no, the most important ego to manage is your own. It's like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be done. What does that even mean?
I hate that term.
Like, what does that even mean?
Music, I don't like the supposed to be. Because it's so subjective to me growing up that it was like, y'all never, like, growing up, you listen to music and everybody catches on late. So what is supposed to be what? You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be what when y'all all just jump on after later. Like,
and supposed to be changes. Go listen to some of the original Beatles recordings in stereo. Like the stereo mixes. The bass is all on the right side.
Like,
Like the drums are all on the left.
The
stereo, they were doing the mono mixes. Those are the ones that matter. They threw the stereo mixes together. Imagine if we all believe this is how it's supposed to be done. Now we've spent 70 years listening with the bass on the right. But no, Uzi pushed me to get better, and I appreciate that. You know, by pushing the envelope with those specific things. Okay, it's like, are you up for the challenge? You know, like, okay, and in those situations, no is not an option. Like, hey, we was gonna have to figure out how to pitch the vocals down real time.
For sure.
And like, however it was gonna happen is however it was gonna happen. But now I have that tool in my toolkit to use for another opportunity. You know,
that's part of your sauce now.
Sure.
I want to pivot a little bit, and you know, in your story, one of the things we like to touch on is rock bottom moment, like that moment that, you know, you're just going through, everything's just happening all at one time. You know, you going through that moment where you're just like, damn, is this it? Is it over for me? You know, like, it's just everything's going bad. And how did you end up?
Moment.
Yeah, and how did you end up on the other side of it?
Cruz knows about my rock bottom moment. Let's talk about it. No problem. Okay, so gotta rewind the clock. 2019. I had a dream when I was in college. I had one dream, and my dream is I'm going to be the best engineer in Philly. I'm going to be best, and this shows like my lack of self-confidence. Something I've been working on my whole life. I thought that was gonna take like 20 years. It took like 6 months. Like, it happened so quickly because like the best engineer in Philly, a great friend of mine, he moved to LA and he left a void. And not only did he leave a void, he pushed me into it. And it was not what I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh, this is going to be lit. I'm going to get all the sessions. I access to every studio. And it just turned into like, I call them pass-through sessions. Artists in town, they do a show, they come to the studio with a bunch of people, they listen to a bunch of music, and they leave. And I have it over and over. Nothing comes from those. Maybe you record a song, maybe you don't. Nothing comes from those. So my friend who moved who moved to LA, he was like, yo, I got an opportunity for you. There's a mixer who's looking for a new assistant. You need to come out here. You need to do it. Like, you need to do it. I dropped everything. We had an interview. It went great. I was like, all right, I'm out. I sublet the apartment. I told all my clients I don't work with them anymore. I was like, oh man, I'm out of here. Go to LA. And it was not, it didn't go how I planned. And the beautiful thing about growing up and getting older is I can look back at that moment and I can say that it was, I don't want to say 100% my fault, but it was mostly my fault of why it didn't go well. Because of ego. I felt that I was too good. I was like, I am too skilled as an engineer to be in here color coding these tracks. I am too good to be in here making coffee. I'm too good to be cleaning out. Like, what am I doing? Like, I was the best. I was the best in Philly. I had every session. And now I'm doing this. I was like, nah. And my ego got in the way of that opportunity. Right? So, Cruz, chatting. It's like, hey, man, come in. Come, let's, I think this thing can work where you can come and take over. So I I went home for the holidays, and then this is an important part of the rock bottom story. So one of my best friends, her name was Deja. We met a freshman year of college. She went to UArts, I went to Temple. We started making songs together, and we never made that many. And she was so talented. I mean, the first song we put out did like a couple 100,000 streams on Spotify, like within the first couple weeks. And this is 2015. That's when like a couple hundred streams on Spotify was like a huge deal. You know what I'm saying? And I was too focused on chasing the big artist and chasing the next thing that I never poured into that relationship. I mean, we were great friends, but I never poured into her career the way I should have. Unfortunately, towards the end of 2019, she ended up getting a very aggressive and rare form of intestinal cancer and passed away on Christmas Day, you know? And she was my age, right? She was 24. This is, and we only made about 10 songs. And the fact that, this is slightly a side note, but the fact that in order to get the pink tape done, we had to do like, you know, almost 2,000 completed and finished songs. I do think that's her kind of sticking it to me for not making more songs, but that really rocked my world. So I went back to LA. I told the engineer that I was working with that I quit. After I had made a 2-year commitment, I quit after a month. I put him in a really tough spot. I don't regret leaving, but I regret the way that I went about it because it wasn't a good moment of my character. And like I said, it was an ego thing. Came to New York, came to the studio with you guys. Unfortunately, that didn't work out either. You know, which is fine. Yeah. And then I went back to Philly. I was moving with my ex-girlfriend. I mean, we were still together at the time. I'd spent all of my money on back and forth trips to Philly. I mean, from Philly to LA, on the rent that I was paying in LA. I mean, I had no money. I now had lost 2 opportunities in the course of a couple weeks. One of my close friends had passed away. All of this unfolded in about 3 weeks. And, you know, it happened right before my birthday. My birthday's in January. And, you know, my girlfriend at the time, she was like, she had a great job and everything. I'm living in her house, not paying no rent, not paying for anything. She said, look, we got to get you together. Let's go out. We went out to our favorite bar for my birthday. I had one too many adult beverages. And I had a full-on breakdown. I mean, I'm talking like I cried in the middle of the street downtown Philly for like 6 hours. Like she had to drag me into thankfully we lived downtown. So we were around the corner from the crib. She had to drag me in the crib. I cried and threw up for about 6-7 hours. I cried and threw up.
No, threw up is a big sign though.
I cried and threw up. I cried to her.
You had a lot of toxins in you.
I cried to my mom. I cried to my best friend on the phone. And then
you had to get it out.
Got it all out.
Yeah.
Next morning, cleaned the place up.
Yeah.
My girlfriend at the time and my mom sat me down. They said, okay, so you know that therapy thing? Okay, that's non-negotiable now. Yeah. You're going. You're going. And that was the breakdown that led to the breakthrough. The Uzi thing happened about a month later. It changed my life.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
Like I truly hit rock bottom and was like, all right, hey man, life happens. We're going to dust ourselves off. Yeah. We're going to learn. We're going to get our ego in check. Yeah. We are never too good to help out. We fast forward the situation a year and a half later. Cruz is finishing up Expensive Pain. Cruz and James are finishing up the mixing. They don't have a mix assistant. They need help. I stayed up all night with Uzi for a week recording, walked across the hall, printed the cleans, made the edits, everything. No questions asked because that's how I had my ego in check. If my homie, you're never too good to help anybody, right? And I can't believe in that moment I thought that I was. And now I'm at the point where my resume is past the point of needing to be a mix assistant, but my homie needs help. I'm gonna help him, you know. And that's kind of how it went full circle. In that, you know, and even full circle, you know, with, you know, me and Meek repairing our relationship and being able to work now and, you know, being able to help out in those situations when you need help. It's like sometimes you really have to hit the bottom. Yeah. Take accountability. That's a big thing for me, especially as I've grown up. It's like, okay, I have told this story differently and I've blamed the other person. And no, I will tell the story how it was. I was the problem. Yeah. And now I can see that I could take accountability for my mistakes in that situation, you know, and it all worked out the way it was supposed to. And I wouldn't do it any other way. Yeah. But I'm happy I was able to learn those lessons and hit the bottom and climb my way back out.
Man, that's what's up, man. I'm just glad that everything worked the way it did, and that you were able to, you know, end up on the up and up, you know what I'm saying, on the other side of all of that, you know, and you really pushed through and you hustled and you got it done, man.
I'm
you know what I'm saying?
I'm just blessed that I was able to get another chance.
Yeah.
You know, some people don't get another chance when they mess up, especially when it's a mess up because of you messed up.
Yeah.
Your ego held you back. I'm just blessed to get another chance and do it differently.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. And that was definitely clutch coming through. We were 3-4 days straight in the studio, camped out. My boy over there in the cut, printing and
no issue, no
making
problem.
different passes, and because that shit was definitely.
I would do it again.
Yeah.
I would do it again.
Yeah, appreciate you, bro. But all right, we're back with another Get My Lawyer on the Phone segment. Today we've been talking to the legendary Ben Thomas, one of the flyest young engineers in the game, making a lot of waves and making a lot of noise, and basically, you know, kind of setting an example for engineers to come after of how to get this done. And a big part of that is my guy Jason, who we have online with us today, who's going to go over basically, you know, some of the things that Ben has been able to do is pretty legendary. As much as we could disclose as far as how he's negotiated and done his business, you know, a lot of talk in the engineer space of, you know, how to get points and publishing, and a lot of what we do ends up bleeding into other areas of the process of creating records, whether it be production, you know, what you bring to a record in the mixing and mastering process, whether it be arrangements or things like that. You know, playing somewhat of an A&R role a lot of times in the you know, keeping the artist flooded with production when you don't have that assistance from the label. So I wanted to really dig in because you and Ben have done some incredible things, as much as you can disclose, you know, in that world. Because I think it's beneficial, and I think it's great for people to know some of the things you guys have been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's one of the more challenging roles that I've taken on throughout my career, you know, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a lawyer first and foremost, you know, and I've been really prioritizing building my law practice, but the creative side of the business intrigues me and has for a while. And not saying I'm ever going to step to the level of what you guys do or playing instruments. I think the my biggest credit is the shaker on a Benny X record, but it hasn't come out yet, so we don't keep that DL till I hit him with my 5%, right? But no, for me, the creative side in that realm is more understanding what the role of an engineer is and what it's become. I think is more importantly, and ultimately figuring out how to mesh the business with the creative, you know. And I can expand on that a little more, but I think that it really opened my eyes in working with Ben for a couple of reasons. One, it's such a unique position, especially if you're the guy as one of a big artist engineer. It comes with a lot of responsibility, right? I think that understanding technology, security, things like that in our line of work, especially the genres we work in, where leaks are so frequent, and people just target certain of these artists in these lanes, and you see their music's always outside the internet. So keeping that secured and keeping unreleased music in particular is a whole job in and of itself. To be kind of a gatekeeper is a very important role also. Once you gain that artist's trust, and you know, it's very frequent, as you know, Cruz, an artist will come in, play me some beats, right? They're not worried necessarily about who the producers are, where you get them from. And that's a lot of work in and of itself, because it's relationship, it's then screening the music, and then it's deciding who and what to play and when to play it, to obviously with the goal of, you know, trying to ensure success and release of a record commercially at some point. And we've not even touched on the core services, right? On actually being really good at what you do, understanding how to make the artist sound exactly how they want to sound, And then if you go into the mixing side, ultimately the post production and what's being done and the mixing and mastering to have it, that final recording come out perfect. So it's a lot of responsibility. I think you have to be multifaceted and multi-talented to be really effective at that role. And I think the last thing is just professionalism and organization. It's very difficult if you're not one of those people that are ultra organized and a people person to excel in one of those roles, because you never know who's going to walk in the studio that night where you may have to be the liaison between a big producer and the artist, or a well-known supporter, guys that came in just to see how the project's going, or then you're going to have to deal with the label, right? So there's that A&R focus that I don't know too many people, honestly, that I've worked with anyway, that have all those skills, or who is willing to learn all those skills to play that role. I think, as you and I both know, and Ben knows, how it should be played. So, like, turning to how I'm able to help Ben be great is just really understanding each one of those roles from a business management and legal perspective, and just helping facilitate to where I can. That may be matchmaking him with certain producers that we feel very strongly about and we want to give, a shot to see if they may work with the artist. That may be, obviously, the resources and the connections and the relationships, and knowing that, there's business next week and the next month and throughout the year to keep mouths fed and food on the table. So again, that's kind of what I meant with when this is as creative as a role as I'm going to take on, but it's definitely beyond, pushing paper and running a law practice. And can't tell you how fulfilling it is, in particular, when you're working that closely with somebody that, very well and you care about. I think, I don't know if Ben went into it when he talked to you guys, but, we've been friends for 10 years first. And it wasn't to the point where, the business was getting in the way of his creativity that we felt like taking on a manager was important to him. And frankly, before that, you yourself included, we all kind of just chipped in, and he had a lot of people just because of how great a person he is and the colleagues that he's built. And for a while, it was like kind of managing Ben by committee, and we all just, looked out for him and helped out. But when it needed a little more structure, I felt like he really needed somebody to put the time in that it takes to be successful. And it's not just how good you are or who and really, as successful projects and individuals, it really takes an army. So, we're working on it by the day. We're getting better by the day. It's been amazing to watch the last 3 years in terms of his development as a human being, an amazing creative, as somebody who went from, the young boy with the nice skill set to being really respected by, big hitters and people that have come before him and really laid the foundation, both on the production, I would say three-headed, on the production, on now the mixing side, that he's focused a little more on his mixing, but also on the relationships. The fact that he was so instrumental with 26 records on the Pink Tape, and he and I basically had everything done even before Uzi's lawyers reached out. That was mostly him, and that's not something like, I think of it as like a law school exam. If you wait to the last minute and try to cram, it's not going to work out for you.
Right.
It's really keeping that organization throughout the course of the recording process, knowing who's involved in each one of those records, having the relationship to reach out when the time is right to do business, and just generally couldn't be more proud of him, how he stepped up and was essential. He was absolutely the liaison between the label and Uzi and the producers, and then it made my job a lot easier just because of how big a head start he had on that project.
Yeah, he did it. He did his thing, man. I had checked in with him a few times throughout the process, and just seeing his growth as we've seen over the years, and where he's at now. It's like he really listens, man, and the way he applies the information and the knowledge, and has created his own process and brand, and he's just getting started. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. And
A
I
lot of
think,
doors.
I'd imagine from your perspective, you feel very similar because I know a lot of those early lessons, like when you guys connected and you kind of took him under his wing and started to mentor him a bit, he couldn't have been more thrilled just because of who you were and what
Mhm.
you've already accomplished at that point. And, to see some of those early lessons that you've imparted in him and to see him, take that, learn from it, obviously there, but then kind of work moving forward in his own way once he got comfortable with what his tools were in his toolbox
Mhm.
and where he's taking that now is, I think special, but I could imagine even from your perspective, really special watching him do that.
Nah, for sure. That's like, proud OG,
Whatever. Yeah, we hit
whatever you want to call
every hat, big brother,
it.
uncle, whatever,
Yeah.
mentor.
Yeah. But just in a generic, I guess, way,
But
what are you?
listen, before we move on, real quick, I don't want to overlook two really important things.
Hmm.
And this is something that not only Ben possesses, but I see in everybody who's immensely successful. The work ethic is insane.
Hmm.
The amount of hours that he can work,
Hmm.
sit in a chair for an extended period of time, no sleep, all the factors that come with working with a rock star, I couldn't put up with half of it. So I give him a lot of credit in getting where he is today
Hmm.
because of his work ethic and the
Definitely.
amount of just time that he puts into his craft.
100%.
The other quality that I think I may have even shared this. I know I've shared it with you guys, but I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast. But every really talented person and really successful person in this industry in particular, because it is different, that I see possesses is for the right opportunity. Not every opportunity, but for the right opportunity, they'll be at the airport in a half an hour
Hmm.
and they have their shit together to be able to do that. And that changes over life. You know what I mean? Especially as life things get in the way. Not in the way, but life things become priorities, families and kids and I hold myself to the same standard. If something is popping and it means I got to jump on a plane in a half hour to make that opportunity happen, I'm there. And I have
Hmm.
my life figured out. I make sure my kids are taken care of. I got backup to backup to backup
Hmm.
just to make sure that I can pull that stuff off. Now, in your early to mid 20s, it's a little easier, but it's not easier when you have other stuff going on. It's probably in his instance the last thing that he wanted to do on many of those occasions. And he understood the importance of whatever that opportunity was on the other side of that flight and doesn't even think twice, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Now, who you're taking those opportunities from and the trust level you have with the folks that are saying, yo, be at the gate in a half hour,
Hmm.
that's even more of a building process. But now, if it's me or a handful of people that we work with, if we make that phone call, he knows what's up and he's there at the drop of a dime. That's something that a lot of people overlook. Those two characteristics are so important to success in this industry.
Big time.
We're just working like you're addicted to it
Hmm.
and ultimately being able to move around when opportunities call and to have things figured out to where you're not jeopardizing your life, your children, your family, whatever it may be.
Yeah, definitely. That juggling act is serious, but it's
And
not easy.
sometimes getting on that flight with a whole studio in your guys' instance,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that makes things complicated when you're traveling with a studio and monitors in your suitcases and all that stuff. Like,
Oh man.
man,
Listen, PTSD. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, just in a general sense, when for engineers does the conversation of points and publishing and things like that come into play? Because I know there's a lot of factors, and I know depending on who it is that's answering this question, it could get kind of shot down really easily, but then there's people that are a little more sympathetic to all of these things that you've talked about and all the work that goes in, and how, like I said, we bleed into all these other roles. Where is it valid to have these type of arguments or conversations?
I mean, listen, first and foremost, if you're talking about clearing a record from the artist that you're locked in with, it becomes a lot easier because you control a lot more of the cards in any given hand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And as you build relationships, those things are much easier to work out.
Mm-hmm.
I try to at least initially come up with a set of terms that's fair to everybody. And I base that on what people's contributions are. And again, understanding the minutia of copyright law, understanding the minutia of what producers do versus what engineers do from a technical standpoint, I think was a lot of part of my learning experience to be efficient in determining where is that line. And I think we all know there's really no bright line, right? Of what is being a skilled mix engineer versus being a producer.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I think each record comes with a different set of circumstances, and it depends who's involved mm-hmm. and what their knowledge is of that person ultimately touching the record or making some changes. Mm-hmm. Who's asking for those? Is it the artist, or is it something, you know, the engineer / producer is doing on their own? But I think going through that process hundreds of times where I've represented each one of those folks differently, it's given me amazing context to be able to sort things like that, in particular for Ben, because he is very creative, you know, and I think he was really a producer first before he started to focus on his engineering and his mix work. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, if he has a record and whether it's at his instinct or at the artist's request to change things that lend itself more to copyright ownership, mm-hmm. then there needs to be a discussion with the original producers, the co-producers. But we always err on the side of fairness, mm-hmm. understanding that because of his role and because of who he works with, it's different than a lot of folks in terms of having like a steady paycheck, mm-hmm. right? Where producers, you're really record to record. And a lot of this is also building towards something bigger. So like in so many instances when Ben adds production, can we take more? Sure. And I think we could fight for that and ultimately win those fights. But what's that doing for a long-term relationship with the original producer who may be somebody and maybe somebody big? Mm-hmm. That's not going to lend itself to Ben getting mixed work down the line from that producer. Or the next time that if there's another engineer involved and it's his artist record, but Ben does something on the front end, is that going to make that engineer say, you know what, let's cut him in fairly? And I don't know. So we always, and you know this about me, I always try to err on the side of fairness. Mm-hmm. If we're being treated unfair, sure, it's time to get the boots on and, you know, go into the battlefield and get done what we need to get done. But in most instances, I find when you do business like that regularly and consistently, it always comes back around and it makes those conversations a lot easier when there needs to be some form of compensation provided to him, because it was really beyond just recording and mixing and mastering. You know, it's really adding things that lend itself to copyright ownership. And that's really, in my mind, the first and usually the biggest question that I'll ask myself when I'm trying to sort splits or determine who gets what at the end of the day, you know. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And I think it's also good in terms of the back end, the relationship that, you know, using his main role and the folks involved there as an example. He has an amazing relationship with everybody over at Atlantic Records, as do I. We're now 3 projects in with a handful of producers that have been with Uzi from day one, right? So like problems arise. A lot of times it's even hard to get in touch with a label where I deal with these guys on their cell phones, and that's great. But it also allows us to provide benefits to the people involved in these records that their teams or their lawyers may not be able to achieve. You know, at this point, they come to us and say, listen, here's the all-in numbers, and we're going to give this to you and anybody that you're involved in, because we're 3 albums in and you make business really easy. And Ben's been a tremendous help in doing things that he's not necessarily, you know, off rip getting paid for. And that goes a long way, you know? Yeah. So the fact that somebody else's lawyer may be able to get, you know, X for an advance and a royalty, and if they just rock with us and trust us to go to bat and at least fix the high level terms and then loop them in when it's everything's sorted, you know, that we can do 10, 15, 20,000, sometimes more than they would be able to get. That's a benefit that I want to make sure that people know is coming from Ben, even if I'm doing the work, you know? And that makes a lot of times those acts easier when you're going back to the main producer a week before the record's out and saying, hey, this changed quite a bit and I want this, but here's the upside. I was able to go to bat and get us, you know, 10,000 more than any other record on the album. And it's almost like we do with legal fees. If it's baked in, it's a lot more tolerable, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, there it is, man. I appreciate that. Very, very thorough, you know, a lot in there. And, you know,
yeah, I think it's very challenging at first. Again, just in dealing with a few mix engineers, I really didn't even have work to do until they started getting points.
Yeah.
Because then you need all the royalty provisions, all the same things that a producer gets and how they're dealt with. There needs to be a more thorough agreement. For years, even with the help I was providing Ben administratively, we're just sending invoices, you know? And there's not much, but to see what's developed and ultimately what this role has expanded to, and, you know, to see him grow into that and to be able to grow into that also and learn a lot from a legal and a management perspective, you know, just been invaluable. And at this point, I think that working with a high level engineer is as challenging as managing any kind of talent in this business or working on the legal issues. It's a lot of high level negotiation, and, you know, it's a lot of relationship management, amongst the other things. So important role and an intellectual challenge for anybody doing it at a really high level.
There it is. Appreciate you again, JB, man, coming through for us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes,
Love
sir.
to see it. Love to see it. Let's keep going.
All right. Thanks, man. You know, we haven't had an engineer, so we got to ask a couple like cliche.
Sure.
What's like the longest session that you've had?
The longest session, there's been a couple, 2 of them. I'll make it brief. One time in Philly, Uzi recorded for like 9 or 10 hours while Cardi was sleeping. Cardi woke up, saw that Uzi was sleeping, did another 9 hours. Cardi fell asleep. Uzi woke up when he fell, and I've been up the whole time. So at this point, we're pushing like 27. There was another situation where did a full night. We had a feature that had to get done. I pressed him to do the feature. He fell asleep. I was like, all right, I'm out. He woke up in the studio a couple hours later, because that's kind of how this thing goes. Like, if you fall asleep, I'm going home. You can call me, I'll come back, but I'm not gonna sit here and watch you sleep. I set that boundary from the jump. I'm not sitting here and watch you sleep. You sleep, I'm out. But called me to come back. I was on the treadmill, full sweat, like going hard in the gym. It's like, yo, just come back real quick. We'll knock out the feature. Get back. He's not there. I wait. Mind you, I'm in the gym clothes, sweat, no shower. Comes back. We knock out the feature. Then he doesn't leave until, it turned out to be like probably close to 30 hours, no shower, smelling terrible. I was like, oh gosh, no. Yeah, those ones. I've been blessed that my experiences with most of the artists I've worked with have generally been positive. So yeah. What other ones you got?
No, I'm just thinking of, because we all have those horror stories of being camped out in the stew, and you know what I mean.
That one was just bad because I was in the gym and no shower.
Yeah, that was probably bad for everybody.
Oh, it was definitely bad for. I was going hard. Yeah, full sweat, no shower.
Yeah,
I know it used to be funny back in the day when it would be like, when you be in a session and then the main artist, he's there, but then, like you said, they fall asleep or they go, they leave, but then they say like something like, how long we got in the studio? They be like, oh, y'all here till 10 a.m. Then they tap like one of their homeboys. Hey, little Newt, you could go ahead and record till I get back.
Yeah. Those ones have happened.
Ain't no coming back though.
Ain't no
you know
coming
what I'm saying?
back.
Like, they just saying, yo, you can record till I get back, but they
I've
go
definitely
home
been
about
there.
their life, and now you gotta record the homie who is just like it's a
The
favor
homie.
from them, and it's like, bro, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, that's.
I'm
I mean,
about
that
to
doesn't
shoot
happen.
myself in the eye.
Thankfully, most of Uzi's friends don't rap.
Yeah.
A couple drunken raps here and there, and then, because he works so much, because every artist on that level keeps some other artists around them that are their friends. Thankfully, because he works so much, though, they have other people that they record with. So I've gotten caught up with that a couple times before, but thankfully it doesn't happen as much.
Yeah, I had that early, but
it's
it got
on.
it's like
thing.
a boot camp, like you know what I'm saying. They work you in and be like,
But then eventually
see how
the
much
artist
they
that
can-
you're working with understands your boundaries, and they're like, okay,
yeah.
Ben is here for me. He's not here for all this other stuff.
Right,
so I'm now. It's like, hey man, see you later.
Yeah. That's how.
Yeah.
It ends up working itself out. It definitely ends up working itself out. But what's like the most memorable or like I feel like we all have like some level of anxiety, PTSD, like with just getting those last minute calls and you in the middle of something you didn't think you were gonna have to work that day, and you done made a.
It's an hour before.
Should we just run down the list of things I've walked out of to go to sessions?
And you're excited, and you're like,
I walked out of a baseball game that I bought seats in the 5th row. Let's see. Walked out of movies, restaurants. Gosh, the list is endless.
I remember
like anything.
Yo, man, early on, it got better over time, but it was like early on. I was it was me and wifey. She was my girlfriend at the time, and we were sitting down for brunch. And as soon as we sat down and put the order in, I got the call from the road manager, like, yo, what's the early, like, we needed you on this next flight. Like, let's say it's 2 o'clock at brunch, the flight is at 5.
yeah.
So we boxed everything up. I ate the brunch on the plane.
Damn.
It was still warm. Like,
Because I ain't gonna lie though, because the worst part is you be like, damn, you got me on, like I shouldn't have answered. I'm sorry, that's how I used to feel. I mean, like if I'm out to eat and I sit down and you call me, cause maybe now I'm seasoned. I know if it's like, bruh, this call right here, I'm about to have to go to work. So let me just eat, get my mind right, and then just go on to work.
With my ex-girlfriend, our second date, we were at one of the piers down in Fidei. Got the call, yo, we got to go to Miami tomorrow. I said, hey, I know we had dinner plans, but you want to go to TJ Maxx? Because I got to buy a suitcase. Like mid-dinner, I was like, yo, I got to go to buy a suitcase from TJ Maxx. And she was cool and stuff, But like, those calls come. They've all come. It is what it is. The ultimate goal is to build the leverage to get to the point where you can say no.
Yeah.
And where you've made yourself indispensable in a situation that they have to respect the no, and you start saying no. But it's about building it up to get to that point and taking the time where you can get to that point.
Later.
Or you can answer later.
Or just answer like if you in the middle of some food and I just like, yo, just eat your food.
I mean, our life, a lot of especially in the come up phase, and when you like getting comfortable and building that camaraderie and that the need factor.
You just want to be there.
Yeah, like the need factor where like,
shit, they calling me.
yeah.
Shit, they calling me.
When I first got started, I put Uzi and all of his friends on special ringtones and on Do Not Disturb bypass and on special vibrating patterns. So I never missed a call.
Damn.
Like I was that serious about never missing a call that I made it the loudest ringtone possible.
I used to treat every client like that, and that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Like I used to, because I thought that was the way how it went. So it would be people who just starting out, I'm gonna pick up and bless a move for you. You know what I'm saying? And now it's just always like that because I always felt like, especially when I was running my own studio and I had my own studio, I always felt like, man, you come to my studio, I need to be available to get this cheese. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be ready. But then as I got older and as time went on, I always was like, okay, show up for you. You know what I'm saying? Like show up in a better attitude, show up in a better mindset. So if that takes, you know what I'm saying, eating your food and then going, or if it takes, hey, I can't make it, or I can't make it until this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you always have to be willing to accept what comes with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You always have to be willing to accept what comes with
It
that.
goes back to what we
That's the
said about
biggest
if you're
thing,
not
yeah.
negotiating, if you're not willing to walk away.
Yeah,
Like,
I've lost some clients before through to that, to where I could accept it, because I was like, oh, so you basically gonna want me to be like this for the rest of my life with you? I ain't him. I ain't that person. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah,
Neither am I.
that person exists probably for
It's
you.
not
You
you.
can find them, but I'm not even gonna lie to you now and just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
it happens. It's part of the come up,
It's
but
definitely part of
you know the goal is to get to the point where you can just have a little more
Just
leverage.
live comfortable, man.
Yeah.
Live comfortable. But definitely, bro. You know, man, there's so many.
So many.
The life of the engineer,
shit. Yeah,
boy.
so much
Oh,
shit
my
that
God.
comes with engineering.
Yeah, I mean, it's-
a lot.
Here's the thing. I don't know if y'all agree with this. I'm so happy nobody told me what it was going to be. Because if somebody told me what it was going to be, I might have said no.
Yeah.
And if saying no would have been the worst decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
You got to go through it. You got to go through the bullshit.
you never know
bro.
how strong you are until you really have to be pushed.
Yes.
And then you'd be
Yes.
surprised. Like, it's like, this is the hardest I can go. It's like, no, you actually have 30% more. You just don't know. You've never tapped into it before.
Right.
You know, and so I'm happy nobody told me what it was really going to be and what it was really going to entail, because I might have said no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to go back to somebody that we all have in common, you know, with Jason, like, I said no originally when they called me to go.
Yeah.
I said no, I didn't want to do it. And he called me and cursed me out and told me I had to go. Like,
yeah.
That was it. Like,
Yeah,
there was-
JB will do that
he
too.
called me and cursed me out and told me I had to go.
Yeah.
And you know, because he could see that it was the right thing, even though I couldn't see it in the moment. I was like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Listen, man. But man, Ben, you know, this has been amazing, bro. I definitely love having you on, being able to get the game that we got. This is gonna be big for a lot of our guys that's up and coming, or even just some seasoned people. Just a lot of financial advice that's
Yeah,
critical.
That's one thing that's never been talked about.
Yeah,
so
and
that was good that we touched on that.
Yeah, and I just saw some comments recently about, like, man, a lot of podcasts are talking about the same shit, and
no, we're
all
not
the
gonna get in here and talk
producers
about
and-
what plugins we use. And we
no. That ain't the point of this pod.
I love, don't get me wrong. I love those conversations.
Yeah,
but we're not having
that
that
ain't
one.
the point
I
of this
don't.
pod.
I do.
I can't stand them shit.
I love
No,
them.
this is why I can't stand them. And I guess mechanics probably do it, but we're going back to the car now.
Yeah. Let's end
Do
it there.
mechanics sit there and talk about the fucking wrenches? Or
Yes.
do they talk about the cars?
They talk about the
They
wrenches.
talk about all that
They
shit.
talk about the
Man,
wrenches.
Fuck the wrenches, bro.
They talk about
They
that
talk about
shit.
the cars.
Nah, they talk about them wrenches.
They
though.
talk about the
So
wrenches
minute.
too.
them
You
snap-ons
know
and
what
all
I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah,
That's
they
to
talk
them.
about-
That's just right there to them. Don't
I-
even fuck about that. We can
It's
fuck
a
about
place
the
for
cars.
everything. It's a place
I like
for
to have
everything.
them
It's about
because
hit records
Yeah.
and music that we like.
Yeah.
I like to have those conversations, and I think
That's
they're
what it's about.
valuable on online and stuff from people like us.
like that shit.
Because I think it's valuable because
I know. I be like, God.
going
damn.
back to what we said about the gear thing, it demystifies it, and I think that's why they're important.
That's
right?
true. That's
like
very
it's
true.
important to hear, hey, I use stock plugins and ProQ, and
that's
I'm not.
cool.
I don't have some secret, sneaky, custom. No, I'm using the same ones. Practice and ear. Like, I think it's important to have them sometimes, so at least people know, like, hey, I'm using the same basic stuff you are. Just get better. Like,
Right.
I don't
Nah,
know.
for sure. Save time, save money,
Just get better.
step your game
I
up.
think, man, it's right, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. But no.
I think, man, I don't know. I think we get caught up in it, and I think that engineering, like, it's part of, like you said earlier, like, it's like a lot of black guys in it and stuff. And I think that is part of it too, is because it's like, if I like the music and I like songs and I like, you know what I mean, listen to this stuff, and you sitting there telling me, hey, man, it's about the plugins, like, dude, no, it's not. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just not about that as far as moving the music forward and making the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even though you need to know it, you, like, don't get it twisted. Like, if somebody says, hey, do this to my voice or whatever, and then you pull up some shit that doesn't
do it.
Yeah. Like, you pull up an instrument or, like, you know what I'm saying? You pull
Yeah.
up some shit, and you're like, oh, shit, this person doesn't know how to do it. You know what I mean? But then there's another side of it to where people know how to do it, and they just suck at music.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And it
sides.
gets to be like,
Overly technical.
like,
I had
do
an
you like
overly
music?
technical. I had someone that I came up with that was, like, incredibly overly technical. I had, like, the Rube Goldberg templates that one thing fed to the other that bounce back and forth to this
But there's
you
a place for
bro,
those
if you
people.
let that shit breathe,
Yeah.
that shit'll sound amazing. But this shit sound, you know what I'm saying? You
gotta- you gotta
overcomplicating
listen.
your process, bro.
Oh man,
You gotta be quick.
it's like my process has gone. It's gone like a U. It
Yeah.
was super complicated at first, and then I went super basic.
Yeah.
And now that I know what I'm doing, I've complicated it a little bit more, but strategically because I now know what I'm doing. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it's like strategic complication.
Right.
But it had to get to the basic point. But yeah, you know, I'm always here to help pass on information.
Yeah.
You know, I have no secrets. You know, I will answer any question because it's important. And, you know, I've been blessed to bring it full circle. Like,
Yeah.
I've been blessed to have people like you in my life who have done that for me.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, you never shied away from giving me the truth so that when I was put in certain positions in certain situations, I knew what to do because you told me what was going to happen. Because we always believe that we're the first ones to go through something and we're the first ones to have this
Sure.
problem. And, oh, my situation with this person is unique. No. All this has happened before, right?
Yeah.
Like
Nothing new under the sun.
nothing new. All these artists are the same. It's
Yeah.
just, they're just coming around in cycles. Like it's
Yeah.
all the same. And so that's why it's important to have these conversations because somebody else might not have the relationship that you and I have, you know, and they might not have somebody that can ask those questions to. It's like, okay, they might not know what building leverage is or how to save their money or what's worth it to buy and what's not, or when do you need to take the sack, like all the things we covered. And so I think it's important to have these conversations, and I
for sure.
appreciate y'all having me here.
Yeah, this was great, bro. This was great.
man.
Appreciate you, bro.
Of course.
This has been Hidden Hands with my man Ben Thomas. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Catch you on the next one. Peace.
Signing out.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.